your voice is also good than your Gurgaon connection.
Okay, we're live now. This is really good. Hello, everybody. Thank you for waiting for us to start. It's always
Your
good to see the
voice is also
numbers
good
racking up
than
as we get ready to go live with you all on what is going to be a mega election special on the Sunday Club. As you can see, our guests are already with us, and we have a new Sunday Clubber, Aman Sharma. Thank you so much for joining us for the first time. I hope you enjoy it and will return.
Surely, Advaita. Pleasure to be here.
I can promise that I'm a good host, but I can't take any responsibility for the others. So, as is the tradition with the Sunday Club, Aman, we'll start with you and give us a little bit of a breakdown about what your experience was like when you started. What were your focus areas? You traveled extensively during this election cycle and prior to it. So please, over to you.
Yeah, Advaita. So I think except Bundelkhand, I think I went practically everywhere in UP over a period of 1.5 to 2 months for News 18. See, when this election started, the conventional wisdom in the state was that BJP had hit its peak in the last election with 325 seats in the alliance. It was bound to come down. Now, how much it was bound to come down was a matter of debate. And will it come down that much that the Samajwadi Party will make a comeback was something which was, a topic which when we went to the field, when I went to the field, I tried to find that out by speaking to various people, various leaders, that is that mood so strong for the Samajwadi Party to come back, or will it be a case of, fought well but lost, which has ultimately happened. Also, when we went into the field, this feeling, even from privately from BJP leaders, whoever I used to meet, senior ministers who were contesting, speak privately to them, all of them practically told me the same thing, that we will be above 250 and about 250 to 280. That is what they said. We'll come down by 50 to 80 seats, 75 seats. And that is what has also happened in this election. So why? I think there are 2 or 3 reasons, on the ground. If you went, like, I would tell you a tale of a particular village, a typical village. If you went into UP, you found 3-4 types of voters there. You would first find young men in the village, roaming around on bikes or roaming around aimlessly, coming up to you and saying, they see you with a camera and a mic and they say ki hamara bhi bayan lijiye bhaiya. So you take their bayan and you bring them on camera. They say ki berozgari hai और नौकरी नहीं है, भर्ती नहीं खुला है 3 साल से, हम तो अखिलेश भैया को वोट डालेंगे. Very, very vocal voter. Then I saw some people countering them, also young men, which I later found were either Brahmins or Thakur men, strongly speaking for Yogi Adityanath कि देखिए गांव में गुंडागर्दी खत्म हो गया है, अब यहाँ पे औरतें रात को घूम सकती हैं, कोई दिक्कत नहीं. These were 2 kind of voters. Then you went inside the village. If you go to speak to women, they opened up with great difficulty to you. But if you spend some time, the woman would tell you कि राशन और शासन, राशन 2 साल से हमें फ्री मिला है और law and order में definite improvement है. And women were also, I think BJP played this card really well, that आप अगर आप सपा को वापस लाएंगे तो गुंडागर्दी वापस आ जाएगा. I think that really got drilled into especially the women population of the state, and they were really fearful that SP should not come back. So these were broadly the 3 or 4, and there was some older population generally which was split. It was also with SP, also with BJP. So it seemed like a close fight on many seats, but more and more you traveled, I at least found that BJP had an edge, especially because of these 2 issues, law and order, as well as the ration scheme, because people were really indebted to the government that, ration had been sent for the first time, that something material had been received. There was not and this showed that I think the Samajwadi Party realized this, because Akhilesh in his manifesto promised ration for the next 5 years. So, he would not have done it unless he knew that this was having a result. He might have attacked the BJP saying, ab charity de rahe hain logon ko, and ye March mein khatam ho jayega. But SP realized that this scheme had resonance on the ground. That is why Akhilesh promised कि 5 साल तक हम राशन देंगे. Yogi even said that हम जब तक COVID चलेगा तब तक हम continue करेंगे. Right. Both parties realized it was a game changer.
I was just coming to that. I mean, the COVID, it offset a lot of the, issues that came with the pandemic to ensure that no one slept hungry.
Yeah. It was definitely there. COVID का anger जरूर था शुरू में, because deaths happened. Obviously, second wave, every state felt the brunt. Nobody was prepared for it. But I think this ration scheme acted like a big balm on the wounds of the people, and people in a way I think forgave the government. Right. So that at least हमारा ख्याल रखा है pandemic पे. Then I think quickly I would say there were 2 or 3 major pointers which showed to me that SP may not be able to cross the mark. I'm writing a copy today which will come out tomorrow. 35 seats of the Yadav belt. This is from Badaयूं to Kannauj. Okay. My firm belief was, when I went there, I spent 3 days in the Yadav belt. My firm belief was that if SP has to come back, it has to sweep the Yadav belt. It has to win there. If it doesn't win there, it is not winning the state. To win the state, it has to do bets in its stronghold. Now, Advaita, these 35 seats, BJP, SP had won 29 of them to come to power in 2012. In 2017, SP crashed to just 6 seats out of these 35, and BJP won 29 of those seats in 2017. So BJP came to power, sweeping the Yadav belt. This time, I wanted to see that is SP coming back into the Yadav belt big time, or is BJP retaining its stronghold? And Akhilesh Yadav contesting from Karhal was a strong factor that SP wanted to make a comeback in the Yadav belt with Akhilesh Yadav contesting from Karhal. Despite that, if you see the results, SP could go up only from 6 seats to 12 seats in the Yadav belt. And BJP went down from 29 to only 23. So BJP managed to minimize its losses in the Yadav belt. And still, 23 out of 35 is not bad. They still got the majority of the seats. So I think that was the major factor which reflected. This is also the potato belt where, farmers were happy with at least the potato crop being procured. And Yogi Adityanath also promised an MSP procurement of potato crop if he comes back to power. That also had very strong resonance. So even in their strong fortress, Akhilesh Yadav could not win, could not sweep it. Even in Mainpuri district, Karhal seat very fought. Mainpuri has 4 seats. BJP managed to win 2 of them. 2 Akhilesh SP could win. So clearly, Mainpuri may be sweep nahi ho paya despite Akhilesh Yadav contesting from there. So I think this was a giveaway to me, at least a big when I traveled, that it is not, maybe SP will not be able to cross the bar. And in Purvanchal also we saw this, that Yogi and Modi have retained their strongholds while SP has swept the Azamgarh, Mau, Ghazipur belt, a big time. And that is because, their core voter has backed them. But as a last point, I would like to say that this argument now I'm seeing on social media in the last 2 days, that baki partiyon ne same tarah ke candidate diye.
Aman, we've lost your audio.
Yeah.
Aman, we've lost your audio.
I think now it's back. Yeah, we can hear you now.
No, can't hear you. You've gone off again.
Yeah, you may need to log back on or... Meanwhile, just to let our Sunday clubbers know that Suhel Seth is trolling me on the live chat as we speak. So that's how little things change on the Sunday club, considering he said he's busy today. Well, we know what he's busy doing. Coming to AIM, no one can believe it's actually you. They think it's a deep fake.
Well, I was planning on boycotting the show again because given the amount of homophobic vitriol that you've been spewing against me and, the extremely abusive tweets against me that you've been putting out. So, I'm deeply traumatized. And, actually, Suhel is like looking after me like a brother against your vicious, horrible behavior. But that said, you see, I felt the need to come here and expose you on your own show. But anyway, I think for
I'm glad
me,
you moved on from Modi to me. I mean, that's a relief. I'll take it for Modi.
So, excuse me. So for me, I think, when I was talking to the BJP and Congress workers in UP, all the Congress walas were saying, "Dekho bhai, SP aane wala hai, SP aane wala hai." And very surprisingly, all the BJP workers were telling me it's a BJP wave. Now, for me, the issue was, who do I believe? Are people stuck in their own echo chambers, or are they, is it wishful thinking? What is it? A lot of journalists I know were saying it was going to be an SP wave in Western UP. But BJP was going to sweep the central and eastern UP. As we saw, one big chunk of SP votes actually came from eastern UP, which I don't think a lot of people, most of the people I spoke to were expecting. And I don't claim to, be able to gauge the pulse of people or anything like that. I really don't have the stamina to go out into the fields and going talking to people and things. But there was something else which was very strange. Goa, almost all my friends in the BJP were convinced that they were going to lose. Uttarakhand, the Congress was so absolutely certain that they were going to win. And the BJP themselves were saying, "Humko doubt lag raha hai shayad."
I'm telling you,
Right.
yeah.
Except the true beat Har Ghar Modi types who I'm like, dekho, see, you are bhakt, so it's fine. I mean, you do you're living in your own thing. Manipur, there were people in the government who told me that we are losing. Okay, so I'm sitting here thinking, what exactly happened? Punjab, I think, was the one state where nobody had any delusions about what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But, it's very important. Aman brought out why in UP, Akhilesh really wasn't going to score well and why all the anger against Yogi dissipated. I think what we have to accept here is that when you win 4 states, some against severe anti-incumbency, and mind you, everything that's happened since then, for UP, it was multiple anti-incumbency. It was Lakhimpur Kheri, before that it was Hathras, before that it was the migrant issue, the migrant labor issue during COVID, and there was the farmer protest in Western UP and things like that. In spite of that, to win by such a huge majority and actually increase your vote share by 5%, is, you have to give the central leadership credit for that, because whatever they've done in all 4 states, when it works in 4 out of the 5 states, clearly something good has happened. For me, the worry has always been about Punjab, because what we saw, if you remember, I was very upset with the government going back on the farm laws. And the real issue was that it handed a victory to what we saw was clear funding and organization from Khalistani elements in Canada, to Khalistani elements here who were being propped up. If you remember Deep Sidhu's funeral, it was Banega Khalistan or something like that being yelled out there. And you'll also find, hello Suhel, thank you for joining me for...
Your elder brother Suhel have joined.
He couldn't keep away.
Yes, Suhel is my brother, and he's been looking after me against this vicious, horrible person, Advaita Kala, who I condemn in the strongest possible words. And even unparliamentary language, I condemn you, Advaita Kala. But anyway, going back to the elections, the problem now is AAP is one of those parties. Given a choice between Congress and AAP, I would vote for Congress any day, every day, day after day. Because in terms of irresponsibility, Congress is still somewhat less irresponsible than AAP. Okay, there isn't a single anarchist, nihilist force that AAP does not support, churns, basically if Shakuni and Mantra had a love child, that would be AAP. And they scare me because, people like Gul Panag and General Panag, one of the reasons they had a falling out with AAP was the way, the kind of subtle way in which the AAP wanted to court the entire Khalistani vote and things like that.
Yeah.
And these were things, and people may not realize it, but now, given the kind of moral victory that these forces seem to have gotten from the farm law reversal, added to this AAP coming to power, which is essentially seen as the sort of hurrah, the expression of hurrah of the Jat Sikh monopoly on power, combined with the fact that water tables are going to drastically drop within the next 5 to 8 years and force a sort of paradigm shift in the agricultural nature of Punjab without the industrialization which it skipped in the 1990s. Industry in Punjab is still heavily dependent on government subsidies or electricity theft and things like that. This is a situation that is just waiting to go back to the 1980s or worse.
And the debt.
And the debt. I mean, the debt is huge.
Yeah, massive debt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is what really worries me. Punjab is the only worry state in all of this. And
Tell me something, Abhijit, and then Suhel can come in on this also, is, this narrative of the Lakhimpur Kheri, for example, it didn't pay off at all. It was drummed up. It was discussed for weeks on end. You had, Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi, all of them jumping into it. However, the BJP swept the entire area. So why have these narratives failed? What is the opposition missing that they can get the media space, they can get the commentary going, but it doesn't deliver on election results? Okay, Suhel wants to jump in here. Okay, go ahead, Suhel.
To paraphrase Mahatma Gandhi, there are two Indias, one which lives on Twitter and one which lives in its villages. The people on Twitter, the so-called liberal media, created a narrative, actually criticizing hatred, but stoking hatred. The irony, Advaita, is that all the people who have been criticizing the fact, oh, we have got hate politics, love jihad, are actually people stoking the fires of hatred.
Yeah.
Today, people are just fed up. People are disgusted, and people actually, it's only people like you, because otherwise no one would recognize you on the streets. You are a Twitter creation. You're a creation thanks to us. Abhijit, Rajiv, Tuli, Sushant, Sareen, Mr. Ghose, Abhijit, Iyer-Mitra. People know you because of YouTube. People know
Yes.
you because of this. You go out
Yes.
on the... See,
Thank
when you're
God for
standing here
YouTube.
and
Thank God for
and
YouTube.
talking to the-
Otherwise, no one would know me.
talking to the kulcha walas and all. See, here's the thing. I didn't want to be rude or mean, but the fact is you're a brilliant fiction writer. But India lives in reality. Okay, if India was all about a
usual, this
kahani...
show is becoming about me.
No, 1 minute. India. So, no, the point we are making is that the Malays is symptomatic of the India that you emerge from and that you represent.
Acha, okay.
We are rooted to the soil. We are dharti
Right.
ke log.
Right.
Abhijit Iyer-Mitra has traveled across India and across the world. I was in Amritsar talking to Redi Walas. You don't even know what a Redi Wala is. If I told you Kanche ki botal, you wouldn't know. So these are the points we wish to make.
Bante ki botal, Bante ki.
Bante ki, no, with the kancha in it. So-
Nahi, Kancha. The point I'm making is, with all humility, there are two Indias. To again paraphrase Veer Das if you want. But the reality is that everyone read the wrong tea leaves because they were looking for the wrong tea bush.
Yeah.
Modi is unstoppable, but that is a danger. I think Abhijit brilliantly summarized and surmised the ailments of the Congress. The fact is that the Congress believes that the Gandhis are the only glue, but as I said on Twitter, for that, get Fevicol. You don't need to subvert and annihilate an entire party because you believe that a family is the glue. And now, frankly, between you and me, Advaita, the so-called millennials, the Gen Zs, people are not being able to associate with the Congress. I'll tell you what happened in Punjab. First, they humiliated a sitting chief minister, Sardar, no less. Then they went insane with Navjot Singh Sidhu, who hasn't even been loyal to his own conscience. Then they got Channi, who was wearing more shawls than gravitas. I mean, these are the realities. So you willy-nilly scored not only a self-goal, you handed the state on a platter to Aam Aadmi Party. And let me tell you, Aam Aadmi Party, and I will say this today sadly, openly, if you want a real challenger to the BJP, it will be Aam Aadmi Party. And a real challenger to Modi, it will be Arvind Kejriwal. Tell you why? Because he also knows the same media tricks and the way to manipulate the media. Not manipulate, the way to orchestrate media. So let's get real. These are troubling times. And the more you analyze what Aam Aadmi Party did in Punjab, you will realize. I was in Amritsar when someone told me, "Aapne Jeevan Jyoti ka naam hi nahi suna hoga." I said, "Haan." Te main tohanu kehna eh Jeevan Jyoti na Majithia nu vi harayegi te Sidhu nu vi harayegi. Means she will beat both of them. I said, "Kyun?" She's saying, "Eh na sadi behen hai." Means she's one of us. Now this is what's happened. And look at what Arvind Kejriwal said. He says a mobile phone repairer, which to my mind is disgusting because you shouldn't be castigating or chastising someone's, profession. But he says a mobile phone repairer beat Chandi. But the reality is they're taking common people who can associate with the ground realities.
Okay. Okay. Professor.
On that note, I will have to leave because, as you know, I'm very busy. And I just wanted to pay my tribute to Abhijit and to Mr. Ghose and Rajiv Tuli, not Mr. Ghose, Sandip. And I wish you the very best in getting someone in Uttarakhand elected. I wish it was you, but obviously you don't cut the thing. But anyway, if you were kind to Rajiv Tuli, he would have ensured that RSS backed you, but even they've declined. So in these trying times, I just wish you the very best in your new swanky apartment, which you've got from a loan from Paytm. And I hope it works out well. And God bless you and may God continue to bless
3
us.
I just wanted to thank Suhel for being here and giving us all emotional support.
God.
Because he's
Professor?
a kind, good-hearted person who knows the trauma being inflicted upon us by this.
And where is that Pallavi Ghosh? Where is Pallavi Ghosh?
Yes,
I thought she'd be busy with CWC today, so I didn't invite her.
Yeah, she's tracking Congress.
With CWC. Pallavi Ghosh, Begani Shadi mein Abdullah Diwana.
She's a person non grata there.
How's Pallavi Ghosh with CWC?
She's tracking Congress.
Aman Mehta has made her persona non grata in Congress now. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay, Jai Hind and God bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Advaita, I'll just complete my point, which I was saying before I disconnected.
Please, Aman, yes.
Yeah, just for 2 minutes. So I just wanted to say in the towards the end that there are some myths of UP, which is propagated by many, which have got demolished this time. One is the Jat voter of West UP always moving away from BJP. It never happens. We always raise it, and Jat is, I'm sorry to say, not the only voter in West UP. It is a misconception. And RLD only won 8 out of the 30 odd seats it contested.
Again, his voice.
Again, his voice.
I think your the earphones are causing.
I think the earphones are giving problem.
Why don't you get?
If you just use the speaker, it might be better. If you just use your computer speaker.
Possibly, yeah.
No, not working, I think.
So we'll wait for him to come
Can you
back.
hear me now?
Yes, now we can. Now we can.
No, his picture is frozen there.
Now his picture is frozen.
Do you want to turn off your video and speak? Maybe that'll help. Maybe your internet bandwidth isn't.
Okay. Can I make my point quickly?
Quickly, Abhijit, then I have to move to Professor.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make a take on from the question you asked and the way Suhel answered. See, why was it that Arvind Kejriwal never picked up on Lakhimpur Kheri? Why did nobody except the Congress pick up on Lakhimpur Kheri? Why was Priyanka and Rahul the only types who wanted to go there? Maybe it's the Congress that is picking up the wrong events to message, which every other party probably realized wasn't the message. I mean, UP, as I understand it, my exposure is through things like, Mirzapur and TV shows like that. So if Mirzapur is anything to go by, then this would be a very common occurrence.
Abhijit, I'll just interject to add to your point. Even since we're talking Lakhimpur Kheri, even Tikait went there and he said everything is fine and he was going away. He went away actually, but then Yogendra Yadav brought him back again to say that no, it's not okay. So even he didn't think it's a big enough issue.
Yeah. So I think the problem here is when the Congress says this issue is big, the press then plays it up, and they're kind of helping this sort of, I wouldn't say ecosystem, but this mirage of setting the narrative that they want you to believe that the Congress is setting the political agenda and the English press is the one that is also setting the political pace of the country. I think it's a cyclic self-delusion thing which isn't really working out.
Professor, you want to come in on that?
Yeah.
You
Look,
were.
let's talk about UP first. It appears to me that in these elections, for the first time, the social media space, the Twitter army, the IT army, etc., seem to be favoring the opposition rather than the BJP. In general, it's the other way around. You see, I have friends all over UP, Western UP, Central UP, Eastern UP, etc. So when I would ask my friends from Western UP, how did it go? And after the first two phases, they were despondent. After the first five phases, my people in Central and Eastern UP said, yeah, it's going our way. And in the last phase, again, people started saying, Ab Modi bachai. And if you look at what you were seeing in UP, the Wire did an interview with Najib Jung after the first two phases, where Najib Jung was foolish enough to state confidently, look, the BJP is just not coming back to power. It's the SP that's coming back to power without support. A very foolhardy statement based on the first two phases. And now we know even the first two phases did not go as the SP had expected. But such was the triumphalism in their campaign and their supporters on social media that a lot of people got taken in. However, the reality on the ground, when I was talking to people in Eastern, Central UP, was something else altogether. And of course, the exit polls, in a sense, showed what exactly was going to happen. Now, when it comes to the administration, one of the things that people said, all this highway building, highway went through Purvanchal where the SP lost, SP won and BJP lost. I think the construction of highways by the UP government shows something. When the budget was being presented, I wrote in Economic Times that capital expenditure by most states actually have slowed down, except one major state, that UP. UP has done very well when it comes to spending money that was allotted to it. It's done very well. It shows the kind of governance that UP has now. This is something you would have never associated with UP, say, 10 years ago. And when you are, when you're getting capital expenditure on the ground, running highways, etc., it is likely that you can also deliver on social programs. Of course, when it comes to social programs, you deliver it on the IT backbone that Aadhaar, Jandhan, etc., have been built for you. But they did it, and they did it very well. So if you look at the 2019 elections, to lose, the BJP would have to lose a massive vote share. Extraordinarily. That was never likely to happen. I think opinion poll after opinion poll said that's not going to happen. Of course, there were some motivated pollsters who tried to show a trajectory of loss of votes working up to a crescendo where the SP would actually win. Did not happen. And I'm not surprised. When it came to Uttarakhand, a lot of people talk about the message on the ground, etc. But those messages on the ground that people were taking were basically from the plains of Uttarakhand. I have friends in Kumaon, etc. And I found there's a massive difference between what the people in the hills were saying and the way the people in the low-lying plains were saying. And in a sense, if you look at where the BJP has not done well, it's basically in the lower-lying areas of Uttarakhand where they have not done well at all. In the hills, they've won. On Punjab, I think I have some difference of opinion with Abhijit. It is true in 2017, when AAP actually lost, I breathed a sigh of relief. But let us look at it this way. Ever since then, AAP basically went overboard on their Khalistan propaganda, tried to be all things to all men. It was looking dangerous, they lost. But subsequently, if you look at it, even the Congress behaved very irresponsibly. Look at the people Congress was getting into the fold. These were all Khalistan sympathizers who had openly advocated Khalistan. These were on their rolls. Sidhu had got them on their rolls. So when it comes to security issues, I believe Congress started acting as irresponsibly as AAP had done. And when the security breach with the Prime Minister's visit took place, AAP was very responsible. They said, yes, a security breach has taken place, and it is the Congress, Channi, who is to be blamed. And that was, I think, a very irresponsible statement. Look, what's happened in Punjab is the following. The two major parties, and BJP was never part of it, BJP is paying the consequences of ceding first place to the Akalis and not trying to expand into urban Punjab. The two major parties took the Punjabis for granted. Even after the 2017 showing of up, they took the people of Punjab for granted, and today they're paying the consequence. In 2019, the Congress was so high. Look what has happened to the Congress. It's self-destruction all the way. Where will Punjab go from here? Punjab has to reform. It was one of the richest states in the country. It is no longer the richest states in the country, heavily indebted, and even agriculture touted to be Punjab's greatest strength. The government spends almost as much on agriculture as agriculture production itself. It's a heavily subsidized, non-sustainable agriculture. And as Abhijit pointed out, the water table has been shrinking. Now, to get out of this debt trap, Punjab has to take some difficult decisions. Those difficult decisions could not have been taken by the existing main parties who have their own vested interests to contend to. They have to meet those, keep those vested interests happy. The AAP, in a sense, has come in, at least on the face of it, not beholden to anybody. It's basically a wave where people have, thrown aside parties which represent special interests and put absolutely new faces to power. Now the thing is, if Punjab can reform, perhaps AAP is the best chance for Punjab to reform. But again, this might be my wishful thinking. It may not actually turn out that way. But AAP has a golden opportunity to turn around, because I don't believe AAP is beholden to any of these lobbies.
Okay.
Security remains a problem, and therefore the government of India will have to warn AAP from time to time. Look, Article 356 exists, and if funny things happen, we will use it. I don't think that threat will have to be made. I believe what AAP has learned over the years, and AAP's statement in the run-up to the elections makes me believe that they will behave more responsibly.
Got it.
Will they be able to govern? Unlike Delhi, it is not a rich state any longer. But unlike Delhi, you don't have a lieutenant governor sitting on them. At least they don't have an excuse of a lieutenant governor sitting on them, not letting them function.
We'll discuss that a little more, but I think Souvik Guha, one of our viewers, has asked a very important question, and I wanted to ask that myself. So now is as good a time as any. And this is for Sandip. Sandip, he's saying that look at the lack of violence, post-poll violence in UP vis-a-vis West Bengal.
Yes.
And it's stuck, and yet at the same time, you don't have the so-called, human rights or liberal media commenting on this. And they never spoke when, West Bengal was burning post the elections. And now when these results came out, I saw that a lot of them were asking the BJP to show grace in victory, just because maybe, someone said something here or there. But when there was actual violence and dead bodies, they didn't think of grace or peace or any of those things.
See, I think we are being naive to expect liberal media to behave any otherwise in this situation. And the second point is, UP and West Bengal are not very comparable, because I'm not too sure what would have happened if, I shouldn't be conjecturing or insinuating, or if SP had won. And you recall that during the election campaign, there were places, there were open thread by SP candidates that if we come back to power, or what will happen. And you've seen in public meetings how Akhilesh Yadav was talking to the police men in some situations. So the situation. So it's a matter of culture. I don't think, in Bengal, if BJP won, after that you would have seen any of this. Even I don't think you would have seen a retaliation to BJP. And as far as I said, the media not commenting is nothing new. and we have to discuss that either separately or offline. I think the two is somebody who lives in West Bengal shouldn't be surprised about the difference in treatment between the two places.
And what's wrong with the Telegraph? You know, I saw that. Do they realize that, you know,
Advaita, the Telegraph is a newspaper for hire. Let's face it. It's always been so. You know, the thing is, if you look at the Telegraph, I mean, the kind of writers they have, some of them I know personally because they were with me in JNU. These are basically homegrown Wyszynskis who once with the extreme left, sometimes with the mainstream left, now are selling their tools, their wares to the lady. Vicious, completely vicious. And I'm not surprised at all. But then I believe this is also the manner in which the rest of the Bengali media has also behaved. Some have been cowardly in a sense, they're not taking on the government, and let us face it. Advertisements have a great role in this. You know, you take on the state government, you are basically putting yourself at economic risk and also physical risk. I mean, who knows what gang will visit your office and do what to your printing press and what to a journalist, that's not known. Secondly, if ads dry up, you know, it will be virtually impossible to function. But aside, just keep aside that, you know, the Republic TV wanted to interview one of West Bengal's great artists, who I shall not name. And the kind of abuse that particular artist delivered over the phone, because, you know, it's roaming in WhatsApp groups, is amazing. It's amazing. If anybody from the BJP were to do the same thing, let me tell you, the Ganges or the Hooghly would have been on fire. There is an asymmetry of behavior, bad behavior when it comes, you know, there are certain parties, there are certain ideologies who have the run of the, run of the place when it comes to certain kind of behavior. The BJP does not have it. But the BJP, I think, should be satisfied with the expectations on it. But what we have to highlight is basically bad behavior on part of any political party. That, unfortunately, I don't think is being highlighted enough. This has to be highlighted.
True. Rajiv, Tuliji, are you surprised with the way, you know, the Telegraph sort of responds, and considering the worst post-poll political violence in recent history happened in their state where they are headquartered? I mean, I cover political violence in Kerala, and I can say with some authority that what we saw in West Bengal was even worse. And I don't want to quantify it, but it was horrific. And yet, you know, supposedly these liberal bastions of human rights didn't comment on it. And go ahead, Rajiv ji.
Dipankar ji have summed up most of the things that were there, I believe. मीडिया की जो हॉस्टिलिटी है राइट के थॉट को, वो 2014 के बाद ही कम हुई है, चाहे वो जी न्यूज था, रिपब्लिक था, आज तक था, या टेलीग्राफ है. सो कुछ की हो गई है, कुछ की हॉस्टिलिटी जो है वो प्रोबेबली 2024 के इलेक्शन के बाद मुझे लगता है कि वो भी बिकॉज यू नो सम ऑफ दीज आर ऑक्यूपेशनल हैजर्ड्स आल्सो. So I'm meeting media since 2011-12 when, you know, I was given the assignment of media PR in Delhi and NCR. तो 11 में, 12 में, 12 के एंड तक, 13 के शुरू तक 2-2, 3-3 घंटे जिन लोगों को अपॉइंटमेंट लेने के बाद मिलने में लगते थे, और एक आंसर मिलता था कि नहीं आज नहीं कल मिलेंगे या दोबारा फोन करेंगे फिर मिलेंगे, और वो उठ के वापस आ जाते थे. 2013 मिड आने के बाद से उसमें एक बिहेवियरल चेंज था, क्योंकि दिख रहा था कि शायद कांग्रेस ये वाला इलेक्शन जो है वो हार जाएगी, निकल जाएगी, एंड देयर विल बी न्यू डिस्पेंसेशन कमिंग. बट स्टिल सम ऑफ द मीडिया हाउसेस didn't realize till 2019 even that this thought, this ideology, this dispensation is going to stay for some more time. So कुछ का बिहेवियर जो है वो 18 के एंड में 19 के शुरू में आकर भी चेंज हुआ. So probably, you know, once this राम जन्मभूमि, it is bit anecdotal. So राम जन्मभूमि का जो डिसीजन आया, तो एक अल्ट्रा लेफ्ट चैनल बोलता हूँ मैं तो उनके यहाँ से आई रिसीव्ड अ व्हाट्सएप कॉल, राजीव जी हमारे यहाँ आज पैनल पे कोई राम जन्मभूमि डिस्कस करने के लिए आ सकता है क्या? So I kept on, I mean, laughing for half a minute or so. Then he was surprised. He was chief editor of that channel और बहुत अच्छे दोस्त हैं मेरे. बोले यार आप हंस क्यों रहे हो, हम नहीं बदल सकते क्या? मैंने कहा नहीं, ये आप आज के लिए बदले हो, कल से फिर आप वापस वैसे ही हो जाओगे. और नेक्स्ट डे ऑनवर्ड्स दे वर लाइक दैट. So this is what is what is the media like. So नमक हलाली आप एक वोटर से एक्सपेक्ट करते हो. देखो यूपी में चुनाव जीतने का एक बड़ा कारण ये भी था कि साहब इन सरकार का नमक खाया, इनको धोखा कैसे, राइट? तो अब वो जिन लोगों ने सारी फुटेज दूरदर्शन से ले लेकर अपना चैनल एस्टेब्लिश किया है, उनसे इतनी नमक हलाली तो आप एक्सपेक्ट कर ही सकते हो कि जब कोई उनके साथ नहीं खड़ा है तो वो उनके साथ खड़े होंगे और उनकी बात करेंगे. सो देयर इज नथिंग सरप्राइजिंग इनटू इट. बट हमारे यहाँ एक बात कही जाती है, इस दुनिया में या भारत में दो ही तरह के लोग हैं. एक जो आज हमारी तरफ आ गया है, एक जिनको भविष्य में हमारी तरफ आना है. तो आवर डोर्स आर ओपन फॉर इवन देम आल्सो. सो दैट इज नॉट दैट. देखिए मगर कुल मिलाकर के जो सारा चुनाव ये 5 स्टेट्स का हुआ है, उसमें दो बातें बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है समझने की. पहला तो मेरा प्रश्न है, मैंने अलग अलग डिफरेंट पैनल्स पे उसको रेज भी किया है. ये जो कास्ट का डेटा आता है, जाति के जो आंकड़े आते हैं, ये जाति के आंकड़े कहाँ से आते हैं? 1811 में एक कास्ट सेंसस हुआ था, उसके बाद आज तक कास्ट सेंसस नहीं हुआ. मगर हर इलेक्शन में जाति के आंकड़े आते हैं. वो कहाँ से आते हैं तो मुझे किसी भी एंकर ने, किसी भी एडिटर ने इसका जवाब ठीक से नहीं दिया. दूसरा, कभी भी किसी भी पार्टी के लिए वोट डलता है 3 चीजों पे. वो डलता है संगठन, नीति और नेतृत्व. आपके संगठन का स्ट्रक्चर क्या है? प्रियंका वाड्रा ने यूपी में अक्रॉस घूमना शुरू किया, रैलियों में भीड़ आ गई, लगने लगा कि कुछ हो जाएगा. मगर वेयर आर द पीपल हु कैन टेक द वोटर टू द पोलिंग बूथ? 1, पार्टी की नीति क्या थी, पार्टी किन मुद्दों पर चुनाव लड़ रही थी. और अखिलेश जो भाषा बोलते थे, ए पुलिस, तो लोगों को लगता था कि ये वही सपा है. देखिए 3 पार्टियां मुझे नहीं लगता अब कभी भी वापस आ पाएगी. एक अकाली दल, पिछले चुनाव तक 2017 तक भी उनका नारा था जीतूंगा तो लूटूंगा, हारूंगा तो कूटूंगा. दूसरा, हरियाणा में INLD, सबको उनकी गुंडागर्दी, उनकी बदमाशी ध्यान में है. वहां एक छोटा बच्चा जेजेपी बन गया, तो जेजेपी कैन बी एन गुड अल्टरनेटिव टू INLD टुमारो बिकॉज इट इज बीइंग रन बाय एन जाट लीडर. तो और तीसरा है आपका उत्तर प्रदेश, जहां सपा का इतना बैगेज हो गया है. ये जो हुल्लड़बाजी का बैगेज है, ये जो मुख्तार अंसारी के लड़के का स्टेटमेंट आता है कि 6 महीने तक आपको देखेंगे, यहाँ रखेंगे, आपका हिसाब करेंगे. अच्छा, लोगों को लगता है जो भाषण मंच से दे रहे होते हैं, मैं अपनी कम्युनिटी में दे रहा हूँ, यहाँ से बाहर कैसे जाएगा? और इनको ये मुझे वोट तभी देंगे जब मेरे मुंह से ऐसी बात सुनेंगे. मगर उसका जो रिजल्ट आता है वो देखिए, जहां जहां अभी पोलराइजेशन होगा उस पर काउंटर कंसोलिडेशन होगा. जब सपा के बारे में एक बात चल रही है कि वो मुस्लिम और यादव की पार्टी है, MY, और उस पे MY होने के बावजूद भी उस पे कम्युनल होने का ठप्पा नहीं लग रहा. मुसलमान वोटर जो है वो ओपनली कह रहा है, उनकी लीडरशिप ओपनली कह रही है, वी विल सपोर्ट सपा, वी विल नॉट सपोर्ट एनी अदर पार्टी देन सपा, बिकॉज यू नो सपा जब आएगी तो हम, और मायावती कहीं इलेक्शन में दिख नहीं रही थी. तो ये काउंटर प्रोडक्टिव भी तो होता है जब एक डोमिनेंट कास्ट, जिसको आप यादव लैंड गलती से बोल देते हो. मुसलमानों में भी मुझे नहीं लगता कि मुसलमानों में पसमानदा और जो अगड़े हैं वो सारे के सारे कोई ऐसे मतलब वो भी स्कैटर्ड उसी हिसाब से है. बस्तियां हैं, ये पसमानदा की बस्तियां हैं, ये कुरैशी रहते हैं यहाँ, सैन रहते हैं, ये चौहानों की बस्ती है मुसलमानों की. तो वहां भी ऐसे कास्ट है, मगर आप उसमें तो डिवीजन नहीं क्रिएट कर रहे हो, तो यहाँ कर रहे हो. तो इसका भी ये भी काउंटर प्रोडक्टिव है. इसमें भी लोगों को लगता है कि यार व्हाट इज दिस यार, आई मीन वहां पर तो आप मुसलमान कर. और देखिए एक बात और, जहां पर भी मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन 20-22%, 25% के आसपास होती है, आप वहां ग्राउंड पे रहने वाले व्यक्ति से जब बात करेंगे, उससे पूछेंगे, क्योंकि वो रोज उसको भुगतता है। और पिछले 5 साल जो थे 12 से 17 के, उन 5 सालों में झगड़ा होने पर रात को जेल में कौन रहेगा, थाने में कौन बंद होगा, किसके ऊपर मुकदमा लगेगा, किसके ऊपर जुर्माना लगेगा, ये एसपी का लोकल लीडर प्लस वहां की मुस्लिम लीडरशिप, जहां मुस्लिम सब्सटैंशियल नंबर्स में थे, ये तय करते थे। तो इतनी जल्दी आप, मतलब मेरे को तो ये समझ में नहीं आया, जितने सब लोग ये एनालिस्ट टीवी पे भी बैठते हैं, ये बोल रहे हैं कि जाट और मुसलमान जो है वो एक साथ वोट कर देंगे। अरे साहब, जाटों ने, गोकुल जाट ने एक छोटा सा झगड़ा होने पर अकबर की वो क्या कहते हैं, कब्र जाकर के खोद दी थी। तब से लेकर के आज तक जाटों का और मुसलमानों का एका नहीं हुआ है ये। और उसके बाद अब ये 2013 हो गया, 2013 में मुजफ्फरनगर हो गया, इतनी जल्दी जाट कैसे भूल जाएगा? तो ये सब बातें जो है कुल मिलाकर के ये डिस्कोर्स में नहीं आती हैं, ये डिस्कशन में नहीं आती हैं। तीसरी एक बात, जो लोकल लीडरशिप की बात होती है, महेंद्र टिकैत को मिलते, जो अपना ये राकेश टिकैत को जब चुनाव लड़ता है तो 1500 वोट मिलते हैं और वो जाटों का नेता है। अजीत सिंह अपना चुनाव हार जाते हैं, वो जाटों का नेता है। जयंत चौधरी चुनाव हार जाता है, वो जाटों का नेता है। संजीव बालियान, एसपी सत्यपाल मलिक, ये लोग कंसिस्टेंटली चुनाव जीत रहे हैं, ये जाटों के नेता नहीं है। स्वामी प्रसाद मौर्य तो जाटों का नेता है, वो मौर्य का नेता है। केशव प्रसाद मौर्य जो सिटिंग डिप्टी सीएम है, वो नेता नहीं है। तो ये जो बोगीज क्रिएट करते हैं, बिना जमीन पे जाए बोगीज क्रिएट करते हैं। और दूसरा, मुझे तो लगता है 14, 17, 19, 22 और अब 24-20 के बाद आप देख लीजिएगा, कहीं भी जाति के हिसाब से उत्तर प्रदेश में कम से कम वोट नहीं होगा। ये मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है। एक ब्रॉडली जो ये कल्चरल रिनेंसा, ये तो सांस्कृतिक पुनरुत्थान, आप राम मंदिर में देख रहे हो, आप विंध्यवासिनी कॉरिडोर में देख रहे हो, मध्य प्रदेश में आप उज्जैन में जो कॉरिडोर बनना शुरू हुआ है अभी आप उसमें देखोगे, काशी बाबा विश्वनाथ देखोगे, मथुरा के आसपास का एक वो जो कृष्णा सर्किट बना है उसमें। तो ये जो कल्चरल रिनेंसा जिसको आप कह सकते हो, या सांस्कृतिक पुनरुत्थान कह सकते हो, जो ये हो रहा है, मुझे लगता है कि आगे आने वाले चुनाव आपको जाति से हट करके, देखिए एक बात और बताता हूँ, पिछली सरकारों ने स्कीम्स लेकर के आई, अम्बेडकर ग्राम विकास, वो किसको मिलेगी? वो उसको मिलेगी जिस गांव में जाटव या जो पिछड़ी जातियां हैं वो रहती है, वो स्कीम्स उनको मिलेंगी। आप बताइए, इन पिछले 5 सालों में उत्तर प्रदेश में कोई ऐसी स्कीम आई हो जो केवल एक जाति विशेष के लिए हो? तो ये जो सारी बातें हैं, वो ठीक है, जाति अभी जाएगी नहीं, मगर कम से कम जो वोटिंग पैटर्न है उसमें आपको जाति अब कम दिखेगी। वोटिंग पैटर्न जो है वो सुशासन पर होगा, वो सुरक्षा पर होगा, वो स्वास्थ्य पर होगा। वो अब मैं इतने बड़े इलेक्शन में कहीं भी गोरखपुर में जो जापानी बुखार होता था उसका मुद्दा नहीं उठाया किसी ने भी, कि भाई वहां जापानी बुखार में इतने लोग मर रहे हैं, कफील खान को हीरो बना दिया। और उसके बाद से आज तक वहां कोई जापानी बुखार का एक भी जो वार्ड, उतना बड़ा वार्ड था, वो वार्ड खाली रहता है। ये मुद्दा अब ये जो, और देखिए ईस्टर्न जो यूपी है उसमें ये स्वास्थ्य सेवाएं एक बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा है अपने आप में। जब ये कुंभ लगा था, कुंभ में हमने एक नेत्र कुंभ शुरू किया, तो जब वो नेत्र कुंभ शुरू किया तो उसका प्लान ये था कि लोग वहां पर आएंगे, उनका कैटरेक्ट का टेस्टिंग करेंगे और उनको ऑपरेशन करके चश्मा देंगे। टारगेट था कि 10,000 लोगों को कर लेंगे, इतना ही हो जाएगा तो बहुत हो जाएगा, कि 10,000 लोग तो बहुत होते हैं। 1.25 लाख लोगों का करना पड़ा वहां पे, 1.25 लाख, 1.25 लाख लोगों का नेत्र कुंभ में ये ऑपरेशन हुआ, जिसका रिपल इफेक्ट जो है
जी
वो। और अब उसके बाद जब हर जिले में मेडिकल कॉलेज की और उसकी बात हो रही है, तो मुझे लगता है अब आने वाले दिनों में चुनावों में ये सब चीजें, थोड़ा जो जातिवादी वाले मामले हैं ये थोड़ा कम चलेंगे। और एक आध इलेक्शन और लगेगा जब ये जाट लैंड, यादव लैंड और ये सारी जो चीजें हैं, ये सब भी चीजें जो है, मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि 1 साल और लगेगा, एक इलेक्शन और लगेगा, उसमें ये सारी चीजें भी थोड़ा और पीछे जाएंगी। और इन्हीं मुद्दों पर चुनाव जो है वो डेवलपमेंट पे, सुशासन पे, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर पे, इन्हीं मुद्दों पर चुनाव हो।
और मुझे एक्चुअली अमन जी से पूछना था, अमन जी ये बहुत कहा जा रहा है कि that post this election Yogi Adityanath has emerged as a force of his own. Now if you recall in 2017 BJP went into the UP election with no CM face, and although on the other side you had UP ke ladke and you had all that buzz around the two of them, Rahul and Akhilesh, BJP side you didn't have that counter face, you know. Subsequently, of course, Yogi Adityanath became chief minister of the state. It was the first time he had been put in such a position of power. He prior to that had been MP multiple times. He's never lost an election. Post this election and during your travels as well, what were you hearing from the local people about Adityanath? Do you feel that he's emerged as a vote catcher with a more, he's a star campaigner. There are requests for him to campaign in the south of India also, you know, be it Kerala, be it Karnataka, wherever. But in UP itself, what is the change that you have seen?
See, definitely. I think Yogi did over 200 rallies on his own in the state, for the highest rallies he'd done by any other leader. See, I believe that Prime Minister Modi's choice of Yogi as the Chief Minister of UP was based on two major things. One, I think that Mr. Modi really felt that UP needs to get rid of corruption. And second was that UP needs to improve on law and order, because there are no investments coming in UP because of the image of UP. These were the two counts which Yogi fitted in. There is no, specter of corruption again, no even hint of corruption against Mr. Yogi. He's in the same mold as Mr. Modi. So there was Mr. Modi. So there was no, chance of any corruption or any such taint on him. Second, because he was seen as a strong administrator, even in Gorakhpur, he was seen as a no-nonsense person. He was the fit person to set the law and order into place in UP. This is what something BJP really felt. And, if you speak to police officers in UP who were in charge of this cleanup operation in the past couple of years, in Meerut, they have told me that Yogi had a clear directive of free hand that we need to get this state rid of mafia. And, people make fun of this bulldozer campaign, Advaita, that, in large stream media, bulldozer Baba. But if you go to the ground, people were really appreciative. Bulldozer became a sign of empowerment of locals against mafia in places like Mao, Azamgarh, that, Baba jo hai, kisi ki sunta nahi hai, aur Baba ke khilaf koi, Baba is not approachable by any of these mafia or criminals. He's a no-nonsense CM. He's a lat-mar CM, as in UP tell us, that, he will not, buckle down under any pressure. So this is something I think Yogi built his image on these counts. And another thing, I think Yogi has followed the Modi model very, very closely. If you see, when Yogi came to power in UP was at the last spot in implementing all major schemes of the Modi government, be it PM Awas, be it Swachh Bharat, be it drinking water, be it anything. Yogi turned around the situation. He adopted this model ki jitni central schemes hai, mujhe UP mein sabki sab top par lani hai, and he succeeded in doing that. So when you do that, when you bring development, as Mr. Tuli was saying, that development schemes were rolled out on the ground without any discrimination. When I went to women and asked them about rations, all women in the village had got rations, and they told me, हमें इसमें कोई रिश्वत नहीं देना पड़ा, हमें कोई इसमें सिफारिश नहीं करवाना पड़ा कि हमें राशन चाहिए, सबको घर पे खुद राशन मिला है राशन कार्ड के अगेंस्ट. So that is, I think, the major change that Yogi brought into the state. Also, I think, so I would, like I wrote in one story, that Modi is the magic pill in UP, but Yogi is the booster dose. When you combine these two factors, it becomes a very, very potent combination in UP. And I would personally say, Advaita, that 275 seats का win जो योगी का है यूपी में, ये 325 सीट की जीत से भी बड़ी जीत है. क्यों? Because BSP का इस इलेक्शन में total decimation हो गया. It was a polarized election, bipolar election.
Yes, bipolar
election, and UP ने BJP managed to increase its vote share by 4%, from 40% to 44%. So I think this is a big achievement of Yogi, and I think three myths, Advaita, got demolished in this election. First myth, that Jats will always go away from the BJP. This is the biggest myth propagated by media, I think. Jats will never vote along for the Samajwadi Party in big numbers. Jat चाहे hand pump को वोट डाल दे, जो डाला Jats ने, there is no doubt about it. 8 सीट अगर RLD ने जीता है तो Jat के वोट पे ही जीता है. But Jat ने SP के सिंबल पे वोट नहीं डाला है. And I think Jayant and SP were in a wrong alliance. Jayant would have done even better if he was with the BJP. Second myth was that incidents like Hathras, incidents like Unnao, or incidents like Lakhimpur affect
Lakhimpur.
elections in a big way. BJP has swept all 6 seats of Unnao, including Bangarmao, in which the Sengar incident happened. BJP has swept all 8 seats of Lakhimpur. BJP has won 2 out of 3 seats of Hathras, including the Hathras town seat where the rape incident had happened. So I think we have to differentiate crime, law and order incidents from electoral politics, because they don't really have a correlation. And I was told, in fact, in Hathras, that there is a counter polarization to such incidents in the favor of the BJP. You remember in Lakhimpur, BJP did not sack the MOS home, despite all sorts of pressure. Did this work for the BJP? We don't know, but this might have been a factor that, you didn't sack your Brahmin face there. There might have been a counter polarization to that incident in favor of the BJP. I think these are major myths in UP which were broken by this election. And Yogi going ahead now, I think he's cemented his place in the top 3 troika of the BJP. Clearly, that signal was given even before the election, when Yogi was especially flown down from Delhi to the BJP's national executive meeting and made to move that special resolution, which in the past had been moved by the likes of Nitin Gadkari and Rajnath Singh. The message from Modi was very clear that his backing is totally behind Mr. Yogi in this election. And I think that really registered with the voters. And, because he is a doubt. Yeah.
Aman, quick question. Vivek Shukla has asked this, and a lot of people were talking about it even prior to the elections. And there was this sense that Yogi is being suppressed in the BJP. So that's what Vivek's question is, that there's this rumor that Yogi's stature is being suppressed now in the BJP. If you recall, prior to the election also, there was this lot of this gossip mongering in Lutyens Delhi and in the Delhi power circuits that, there's this agenda at play to keep Yogi down. All of that really...
Which cabal, left or right?
No, it is wishful thinking, Advaita.
Yeah,
it was never so. As I said in the beginning, there are reasons why Mr. Modi chose Mr. Yogi as the chief minister of UP. There are clear reasons behind it. People call it polarization. I don't believe in all that. There were 2 clear reasons, as I just explained: law and order and non-corrupt image. These were the 2 clear, and he has performed. I can say it with some authority that the PMO and the government at the top feels that Mr. Yogi has really outperformed. In fact, in all central government schemes in UP, Mr. Modi really likes performance in his central schemes to be implemented in the state at the grassroots. And this is what I think Yogi has just copied the Modi model. Very to the point, like what he did as Gujarat CM, Yogi has really studied it and implemented it. Even in his victory speech, if you see that day in the evening at BJP headquarters, I think somebody told me he named Modi I think at least 20 times, thanking Mr. Modi for the support he gave to him. So Mr. Yogi knows what he needs to do as a CM. And I think there is complete support. And I think in the next 5 years, it will become even more clearer. Mr. Yogi is going to become even more important for the BJP, not just in UP, but even in national electoral politics.
So a bit of wishful
I
thinking.
just wanted to ask one question to Aman before this thing.
Sure.
Aman, I just wanted to check, because, one of the things we kept hearing in Delhi was, udhar Thakurwad bahut zyada chal raha hai. Har cheez Thakuron ke favor mein hai. How did you, first of all, was there any correlation to reality, number one? And second, how did it play out? And did the narrative resonate at all, even if in a small section?
It did resonate.
I will just add one more thing into it, what Abhijit have asked. Or Brahman BJP se naraz hai.
Yes.
No, I think both are, the second one is definitely a very, very exaggerated myth. यहाँ ब्राह्मण वोटर, जो पार्टी अयोध्या में राम मंदिर बना रही है, आपको लग रहा है ब्राह्मण वोटर उसको छोड़ के बीएसपी में चला जाएगा? It was hilarious. That Brahmin voter will desert a party which is building the Ram temple in Ayodhya.
But this was a Congress thing. Actually, a lot of Congress people, Congress-related media was trying to push this line.
It was not so at all. Brahmin, so definitely there was no such. Brahmins, I think, have voted even more for the BJP in this election, as per Mr. CSDS figures, which I have seen. They're still to be substantiated, but I think Brahmins even voted in bigger numbers more. And वो मायावती का जो गैम्बिट था 2007 वाला कि ब्राह्मण हम दलित कॉम्बिनेशन मिला देंगे, देखिए वो पुरानी पॉलिटिक्स हो चुकी है. 15 साल पॉलिटिक्स यूपी की बहुत आगे बढ़ चुकी है उससे. दूसरी बात विद अभिजीत आस्क्ड, द ठाकुरवाद, सी डेफिनेटली इट हैड अ रेजोनेंस अमंग द एसपी वोटर. जो समाजवादी पार्टी का कोर वोटर है उसमें तो ये रेजोनेंस था ही. यादव एंड राजपूत आर द 2 वोकल वोटर्स इन यूपी. तो अगर आप वही 2 वोटर सबसे आगे बढ़ के आपसे बात करेंगे योगी के फेवर में. आई रिमेम्बर गोइंग टू दिस लखनऊ में एक वो फूड स्टोरी कर रहा था, टिपिकल फूड का स्टोरी, इधर उधर टुंडे कबाब पे जाके यहाँ पे। तो मैं एक कचौरी शॉप है वहां, श्री राम कचौरी शॉप, वहां पे जाके कुछ लोगों से टीवी पे बात कर रहा था। वन बॉय just spoke a bit about SP. तो यादव लड़का था, बोला रिक्रूटमेंट नहीं हुआ, ये नहीं हुआ। Immediately I saw two people coming there, the shop owner coming there and saying, नहीं योगी जी बेस्ट है। So this was a collision between the two Rajput and Yadav voters, very strong. And जहां तक ठाकुरवाद की बात है, see, I don't think that there has been very, very apparent favoritism showed for the Thakur community by Yogi Adityanath. At least I haven't seen any empirical evidence. There is always this rumor and this talk. You see his top bureaucrats, I go by what your team is. Your top bureaucrats of Yogi are mostly Brahmin. Be it Mr. Navneet Sehgal, be it Mr. The Home Secretary of Nish Avasthi, many of them were Brahmin. Yeah, so he didn't even appoint like all of them Thakur bureaucrats in his key team. So I see that was also exaggerated. I think the politics of UP has moved beyond this. As I agree with what BJP says this, that UP में caste politics से politics अब आगे बढ़ गया है, welfareism politics पे बढ़ गया है, लाभार्थी class जो नया यूपी में एक बन गया है वो above all castes है, जिसको बेनिफिट मिला है, जिसको राशन मिला है, शासन मिला है, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर मिला है, सिक्योरिटी मिली है। और अब इस बार इलेक्शन में नॉट जस्ट दी हाउस, दिस टाइम अ बिग थिंग आई फाउंड वाज टैप वाटर। तो जो हर घर जल स्कीम जो शुरू हो गया है यूपी में, जिसके घर भी नलका लग रहा है और पानी आ रहा है, दैट पर्सन इज इंडेबिटेड टू द बीजेपी की सालों से हम हैंडपंप पे जाके लाइन में लग के पानी भरते थे। हमारे घर में मोदी जी नलका दे रहे हैं जिससे हम अपने घर में पानी भर पाएंगे। इट्स एज बिग अ status symbol as a chula or a cylinder in your house. So these benefits I think have risen above the caste politics of UP, and this election shows that वो 19 में भी शो हो गया था, just to end I don't stretch a bit long, 19 से बड़ा अलायंस यूपी में नहीं हो सकता है। एसपी बीएसपी आरएलडी का अलायंस और कांग्रेस भी एक तरह से हिडन पार्टनर ही था उसमें। अगर उस अलायंस में भी 65 सीटें बीजेपी ले आई थी, 2019 ने ये प्रूव कर दिया था कि मोदी फैक्टर, योगी फैक्टर और वेलफेयरिज्म फैक्टर कास्ट से ऑलरेडी ऊपर उठ चुका है। एंड दिस इलेक्शन हैज इन अ वे सीमेंटेड इट। एसपी डेफिनेटली नीडेड समथिंग एक्स फैक्टर इन दिस इलेक्शन टू विन। मुस्लिम यादव जरूर उसके साथ रहा, बट उसको किसी और कम्युनिटी का, नॉन यादव ओबीसी उसकी तरफ आया नहीं। तब भी पूरा, चाहे जो भी बड़े नॉन यादव ओबीसी फेस बीजेपी को छोड़ के गए, सब इलेक्शन हार गए। सो धर्म सिंह सैनी हार गए, मौर्य हार गए। सो और वो इसलिए हार गए बिकॉज ओबीसी फेस तो सबसे बड़ा बीजेपी के पास है ना, प्राइम मिनिस्टर को ओबीसी फेस है। तो आप उससे बड़ा ओबीसी फेस कौन सा साइड करेंगे? स्वामी प्रसाद मौर्य कहते हैं मैं सबसे बड़ा ओबीसी फेस, हास्यास्पद बात है, इट्स हिलेरियस टू से। So I think Yogi Modi combination is a very potent combination. UP, it would take a big task now to dislodge them, and SP really needs to reinvent itself from its past politics. Yeah.
I think if you saw the graph that came out in the Hindustan Times the next day, it was showing the sheer strength of the social coalition that the BJP had built. Out of the 9 listed big voting communities out there, the BJP was 56% plus in all the communities except Muslims and Yadavs. Right? Now, when you build that kind of a broad-based social coalition, okay, now the only reason I saw that particular graph was, if you remember, there was this whole snafu with Nalin Mehta's new book and Christophe Jaffrelot and Gilles Vernier concocting statistics out of thin air at the Trivedi Center in Ashoka University. You look at the kind of so-called scientific data coming out of Ashoka University, it is such low-level rubbish. I think at some point we have to introspect and look at what kind of garbage data educational institutions are producing, and why is it that one person called Nalin Mehta running a data center is able to actually see these trends of these social coalitions forming. I think, I think if I can send you the graph.
Abhijit, 1 second. They've been very cunning about this. If you look at their data, what they're interpreting from that particular data is, look, the upper caste vote largely for the BJP. Having used this lay of hand, they end up saying that this is an upper caste party. They don't tell you the breadth of the coalition, where upper caste is only part of it. The bulk of the BJP voters, the vast majority of the BJP voters are actually coming from other communities. This is a sleight of hand I have seen in JNU. And that university, of course, is the new
Ashoka is JNU Part 2 now.
And the problem
Ashoka is JNU Part 2 now, I believe.
if you
So
look
one-
at what Jaffrelot and Vernier did, they have decided that these particular names are upper caste. They didn't even bother to go and check out the community certificate, which is available on myneta.com or any of these things. They didn't even know that Jats had been made OBC quite some time back in UP. This is how a data center in this country is run.
Oh, they know all right.
They know. So clearly they know. I mean, I'm giving them the benefit. I'm giving them a very long benefit of doubt. But see, this is the school of data manipulation.
Data manipulation, yeah.
That passes off as scholarly data, which gets repeated in the Indian Express and things like that every week.
Absolutely. But this is motivated, actually.
So,
this is very motivated.
Exactly. So understand, when you are looking, this is the first time in history. What is the nature of Hindutva? Hindutva does not believe in caste. You look at the kind of contempt that Savarkar has for caste. For anybody to say that an Iyer or a Sharma should have Iyer pride or Sharma pride, you will get kicked out of the BJP in no time. You look at every casteist in the BJP, they keep getting shoved to the sidelines. We don't want to touch you with a barge pole. Your president is a Dalit, your prime minister is an OBC. Ye kahan ka casteist party hai bhai? You can accuse them of a lot of things. Casteism is the last thing you can accuse them of. And you look at the coalition they've built, it is overwhelmingly of the lower castes. And why do we keep forgetting? I think you should look at the bile that's come out of Arfa Khanum Sherwani and all those Islamist handles. Dalits have become foot soldiers of Hindutva.
Yes.
Please remember, it was the Dalits that kept this country Hindu for the last 700 years. It was the OBCs and the Dalits and people like that who stood up the fiercest for this religion and kept us Hindu. So, like... we mentioned here this data manipulation, this recategorizing of data and masquerading it as scholarship. At some point, somebody needs to call it out, because this is no longer scholarship. It is data manipulation. I think the case has been made very, very clearly now that there is a focused attempt at academic data manipulation happening.
Two very brief points, Advaita. Two very brief points. You see, we forget that very early on, the Yogi Sarkar did a lot about spreading electricity, taking electricity to the villages also. They sorted out the electricity problem long ago. It happened so early on that we seem to have forgotten about it. But the other thing which I've mentioned before is that when it comes to execution of projects, capital expenditure, UP is the #1 state in the country. #1 state in the country. This is something very, very big. It's done better than Maharashtra. It's better than Gujarat. It's better than practically every other state. This is a different UP that we are looking at administratively. We've never seen this UP before. Can anybody name me that on these serious projects where UP has figured among the topmost of all the states? Never happened before. It's happened under UP.
Advaita ji, should I take off? I'm falling asleep. No.
Okay. Yes.
You people should go. No, you people. I'm not there or something. Anyway, go ahead. I'm enjoying the discussion.
No, I mean, now it's become a conversation. Everybody's speaking when they want. Even you can speak now.
Thank you very much for the offer, but it's a pleasure to hear everybody. And it's now already past 8. Now today, how long are you doing it? It's been a.
It was our mega show, no?
It's a mega show.
This is the mega show. Yeah. No, don't fall asleep again.
You're not falling asleep. Actually, I thought
you're like, okay, let me ask you a spicy question. Okay, what is Priyanka Vadra's future in politics now?
You don't have to ask me anything. Carry on. I don't want to disturb the flow.
No, but I'm serious, because that is a question that has come up by our viewers, and I want
a lot of competent people to take on Priyanka Vadra. Yeah, today somewhere I read that National Herald has an article which says that her oratory skill she demonstrated is better than Narendra Modi, and she has arrived. I tweeted about it. I said, I don't know. I didn't even have a comment if somebody were to say that.
You see, Priyanka Gandhi, Sandip ji, I think has done what nobody else could do with the Congress in UP. That is to reduce its vote share to the lowest ever, 2.4%, from 6% in 2017, to reduce it to 2 seats from 7 seats. Your state president lost the election, Ajay Kumar Lallu. Further, I remember covering Rahul Gandhi's Khat Yatra in 2016. उन्होंने देवरिया से खाट यात्रा शुरू की थी. देवरिया में आरपीएन सिंह ने लॉन्च किया था खाट यात्रा को. उसके बाद वो गए थे मिर्जापुर में ललितेश त्रिपाठी ने लॉन्च किया था. उसके बाद वो गए थे शाहजहांपुर, जितिन प्रसाद ने लॉन्च किया था. उसके बाद एंड हुई थी सहारनपुर में, जहां इमरान मसूद थे. तो चारों पाए जो थे खाट के कांग्रेस के यूपी में, इमरान मसूद, जितिन प्रसाद, ललितेश त्रिपाठी और आरपीएन सिंह, चारों को प्रियंका गांधी ने भगवा कांग्रेस से. All 4 quit under her term. So I think it's a complete disaster for Congress. और लड़की, आज मैंने I think टीवी पे भी बोला था कि लड़की हूँ लड़ सकती हूँ, एक नोबल स्लोगन. It's a nice slogan, it's a good slogan, it's a progressive slogan. But ये electorally काम करता है? No. And you can't do. प्रियंका गांधी 2019 में यूपी पहुंची थी रोड शो में राहुल गांधी के साथ. तो उन्होंने कहा था कि मैं यहाँ पे रहूंगी, लखनऊ में अपना कैंप करूंगी. She didn't come for 2 years due to COVID or other reasons. आखिरी आप 4 महीने में आके और पैराशूट पॉलिटिक्स दिल्ली से करके यूपी की राजनीति में कुछ नहीं कर सकते हैं. ये क्लियर हो गया. ये मायावती के साथ भी क्लियर हो गया. पीपल वांट देयर लीडर्स ऑन द ग्राउंड विद देम. अखिलेश यादव को आपको इसका क्रेडिट तो देना ही पड़ेगा कि एटलीस्ट 5 महीने आखिर में तो वो ग्राउंड में रहे लोगों के बीच में, तो उसका उनको रिवॉर्ड भी मिला है. 125 सीटें वो जीते हैं. बट प्रियंका गांधी और मायावती तो ग्राउंड पे ही नहीं थी ना लोगों के साथ. आप लोगों के साथ नहीं है, कोविड में नहीं है, बाहर नहीं निकले हैं, तो आपको जनता वोट नहीं डालेगी. और आपकी कोई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन स्ट्रेंथ कांग्रेस की है नहीं. आप सिर्फ एक हाइप बना रहे हैं, अपने आप को एक्स फैक्टर की तरह प्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं. और सबसे बड़ी बात जो मुझे लगता है कि व्हाट वाज द बिगेस्ट रीजन दैट कांग्रेस डिड नॉट डू वेल इन दिस इलेक्शन इज दैट प्रियंका गांधी हरसेल्फ डिड नॉट कॉन्टेस्ट. सो यू हैव टू लीड फ्रॉम द फ्रंट. इफ यू आप हार जाएंगी ज्यादा क्या होता. शी वुड हैव फॉट फ्रॉम गोरखपुर अगेंस्ट द सीएम. Arvind Kejriwal lost to Modi in Varanasi, na? He went there, na? He took the chance. So आपको अपने कार्ड को rejuvenate करना पड़ेगा.
If I could come in for 2 minutes, Advaita, before I sign off, for my limited 2 pence. One is, you see, I think we are wasting too much time on Priyanka Gandhi or anybody.
Yes.
Because the reason being, before I come to Priyanka Gandhi, we were all discussing about what went wrong in the predictions, etc. Today, we've got a strange phenomenon in the country where the media has assumed that the opposition is incompetent and they have to do the thinking and the work for the opposition. That's why you have a very Barish Patrakar or Barish editor today giving us a strategy on how to defeat BJP in the next election, and a major strategy. So I was and that was endorsed by one of our
Wall Street Journal.
No, this was endorsed by one of the NRI think tankers that this sounds sense. So I said, is it the job of the journalists to now offer strategy, and that to a party like Congress where Rahul Gandhi thinks, dreams, eats strategy all the time and talks about it. So they're really not outsourced it. So a lot of these parties, especially, I keep on saying I should take a patent on this thing, that any Congress worker who is left in UP, because after Congress has been out of power for now, how many years? I've lost count. Some 1990. 1990 is when they went off. So it's almost 32 years. And without winning an election, and it's constantly dwindling. So if there is seriously any Congress worker left, that person, next time Congress comes to power and center, should get a Bharat Ratna. Because it requires some great level of dedication. Because that old generation is already dead, who were born Congress and, in their blood Congress. So they are out of action. So this must be some new generation for them to be sticking around with Congress for 32 years. Now, whatever semblance of local leadership you had, that you have demolished and taken away. And by Priyanka Gandhi coming, there is no hope for anybody else who were locally could be aspiring to gain position, because that is all gone. You have these 2 youngsters, for what it's worth, again, Jitin Prasad and RPN Singh gone. So no matter how much hype you create around Priyanka Gandhi, how much of, whatever you say, that let's assume she's as good a narrator as Modi or better than Modi, she would still not be able to muster the ground support compared to, forget a BJP, which has now got army-like machinery, even a BSP or even a Samajwadi Party, or for that matter, a BSP. What do they have? So they must be, in some La La Land or Kaku Land to think that they were making a difference and they could get still, if nothing else, they could get 25, 30 seats in that way, just by optics and getting the camera and sweeping the floor in Lakhimpur, guest house.
Sitapur, yeah.
Sitapur guest house. So those are, I think, very, very simplistic assumption, and that is where the difference comes with Priyanka Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi. Again, without sounding derogatory, if people forget running a party, running an organization, Rahul Gandhi haven't even run a household. Okay, so he hasn't managed a household. I don't know how much of that Priyanka Gandhi has done. So what is their hands-on experience to realize that anybody with any hands-on experience, if I were to be, I've trawled UP for several years as a marketing person. If I were, when I changed companies, I launched a new brand. Now, when I'm launching a new brand, I know I need ground organization. I need to appoint new dealers. Okay, it's not very different from this, that, okay, I'm a newcomer coming, I have to attract dealers from the leading companies who were the market leaders over there. How do I get them? How do I get my team built up from all that? So all these are required. I can go and hold a huge launch conference and carry full page ads in the Lucknow papers or everything. That is not going to get me any volume and tonnage. This is basic sense. So they get carried away by all that, surround sound, you call it, or nowadays people call atmospherics. So that, then secondly, I've been talking about this for a long time and talking from first-hand experience. This law and order issue, okay, I till the time I was in active service, that's not too long ago, year and a half there, I had 2 factories running in Raebareli district, okay, and I know what it was in those places and what we have gone through, and what people, the change in mind when Yogi Sarkar came. I think in one of the programs I told people that every state holds these state investment summit. Now there was an investment summit in Lucknow. They did it in which year? I think it was Rajiv, you would remember. I think 2018 only they did it, the summit. And after that was a huge jamboree. A lot of places they do the jamboree sign up. I know we signed something over there, and for a unit in Aligarh, I would get calls every month to check what's your progress. Do you need any help? What can we do? Every state has investment incentives, which is the GST and sales tax incentive. Much of those, including in other BJP states, I don't want to name them, they are mostly on paper. Okay. Companies are accounting for crores and crores of things, but they haven't seen the light of any money, and I don't know when. Whereas in UP, month after month, the money comes almost on the clock, and without any chasing, without any spending any money and things like that. So these are changes. Now, law and order, as you were saying earlier, if my factory had a problem, if we were to call the police, they are not going to respond. So in this situation, if somebody did anything over there and we approach the secretariat, they say all that you do is before coming here, lodge a diary in your local thana, then come to us, and the rest leave it to us, and you see action. Now, these are things people don't understand. Now, then the COVID matter, one part is to say that there are deaths and you blow up everything and put it everywhere and say that the numbers aren't accounting, blah, blah, etc. But in reality, what is happening, and there was death everywhere, but what are the people seeing? And that's where the quote unquote the term of niyat. If people are going out in the field trying to help, it's not that they have just switched off. Some of your very, very well-known journalists, they say, oh, if Akhilesh Yadav would have come out 3 months before that during COVID, he would have done a lot. But what does SP have a cadre base which is, service oriented? Can an SP cadre base do anything which an RSS cadre base can do in these sort of situation, or a BJP cadre base can do? One thing is for Yogi Adityanath to come and be seen in hospital. But then if he gives an order to his people that ye hona chahiye, aisa karna chahiye, even if handling cremations or whatever, you have the army of people to do it, and they will do it willingly because that is ingrained in their genes. Whereas you just, without again casting aspersions, I try to imagine an SP, cadre, like the kind which we see, if they are told that jaake help karo information or help karo treatment, uska mindset kya hai? So if Akhilesh Yadav, in a way, we have done better not coming out 4 months ago, in that it would have been a very bad comparison between what they are doing and what these people are doing. So a lot of these things are therefore people believed, and most importantly, after a while, your journalists and media people, they start seeing what they want to see. As Aman says that, he might interview somebody and he will tell you something, and it's your judgment, okay, what you take or not take. Again, I'm drawing analogies, having been a marketing person. Like, if I was taken to the market by my salesperson, I know he's priming up the market for me, my visit. So I have to exercise my judgment in terms of how much discounting factor to apply from what I'm seeing in the market, what my all dealers will tell you, nahi sir, aapka brand to bahut acha kar raha hai, agle mahine to hum daba ke bech denge, and all that will happen. Now, I have to, apply my sense, my put the finger on the pulse, know what it is. Maybe some places I will go to a different shop than what my salesperson had already planned in the itinerary. And then, but if you are looking for that kind of a validation of your own assumption, then you go through. Having said all of it, there was, I don't know whether it was the atmospherics or what, there was also an element of tension in people throughout, because I suppose the mahal was created like that. There was a lot of crowd these people were doing a gathering, and there is obviously at some level, sometimes there is this caste factor, as Aman was saying. Somebody may say that hum to abhi gusse mein hai, iska, I'm not going to do something, but actually they may do something else when they actually go to. But there was an element of tension. I had my, one of my sources in UP especially are my old entire, very large distributed network. I know both from my 3 generations of companies. So they're still in touch with me. They talk, I send them this thing. A lot of those people are, again, for the reasons I said, they all support Yogi and BJP. Everybody wanted Yogi back over there. And that's something which I've said, although it's a shorter period. Yogi today has his own cult following in UP, like Modi had developed over. Modi took 10 years to do that. Yeah, and Yogi is nowhere in that league of Modi is, which is an institution, but Yogi has built a cult for himself, because a lot of people have appreciated, while there has been people who have been put off by him, there are people who also, so there were a lot of them wanted Yogi to come back. But towards the end, even a place like Allahabad, which had very low polling, 39, 30 runs, one indication is Keshav Prasad Maurya lost, although from Kaushambi next door, but he lost. So there was nervousness. Arey kya ho gaya? 38, 39% Allahabad mein kaise aa gaya? Bahuguna's, Rita Bahuguna's son defecting at the last minute. There was this thing. So whereas the mindset, or that, this is what it ought to be, at some level, there was a little nervousness. And normally people take BJP's own projections pretty seriously. But I think the West Bengal experience had, created a little bit of credibility factor. So a lot of people were wanting to hold their, even after
I want to ask you this, the optics of it, like Rahul Gandhi eating that ice cream sundae the next day or the day prior, and, then playing that basket. No, it was a badminton match where he's actually a good badminton player. I'll give him that. And, the Congress standing around him and like clapping and all of that. I mean, what are they trying to project here,
See, that is the whole funny thing. At least you and I don't figure out what could be their, who's advising him, what is the projection, whether he's trying to project himself as a very cool person, going. So those are. But coming back again on, coming back to the same question you were talking about, ladki who. Now, today's ladkis are not looking for that kind of pep talk. They also want to know what is business. Okay, like what will you do for me? Are you going to give me, job opportunity? Are you going to give me education? How are you going to change my life? And people are no longer naive to think that you say, okay, I'll revive the PSUs. And that create jobs. People have seen in 70 years what kind of jobs PSUs generate or don't generate. So when instead of that, if a Modi talks about connectivity, he talks about Kisan Express by increasing this. They talk about these one district program. He talks about the Bunkaris and what relevant. Those are things which people start connecting. If he's going and speaking in Mirzapur and all, and he's talking about weavers and he's talking about that. That's what people will relate to. Rahul Gandhi would have gone there and started talking about making mobile factory over there, like he did. Mirzapur person doesn't want a mobile factory. He's more interested in what is going to happen to his carpet industry or somewhere else, garments industry. So therefore, there is a huge disconnect. Akhilesh, I suppose, he tried to mobilize. He had his maybe funds and everything else. There was a lot of people rallying behind him. But as Naresh Agarwal said in one of his interviews, look at the people around him. He didn't have anybody of substance. Earlier, at least, he had some strong men like Shipal Yadav and all. And this time, as he said, Shipal Yadav was there, but naam ke vaste, he was. ये बोल रहा था कि पीछे से चाकू शायद नहीं मारा होगा, लेकिन but he and others were kind of just passengers. So he didn't even have that kind of a team to really get anything around. So as you're all talking about Nalin Mehta's, we have all realized the election has become a different game today. And it's it's no longer just. So people see that Hathi ke Dant and there's a speech, etc. But Modi's one speech is, but what you back up through the speech. Like I gave you a marketing example, I can have a big sales conference bash in the biggest 5-star in Lucknow. But after that, how you capture that momentum when these 1,000 dealers go back home to their places, how do your salespeople capitalize on that josh which has been created? That's what makes the difference. Yeah. Otherwise, log aayega khaye piye kisko kind of a thing. Okay, very good. Aaya nacha gana hua, they have a meal and then go back and forget about you. So everywhere you need to have that connect. Yeah, so that is one. And the other thing I'd like to say,
please, go ahead.
One last thing, since we were discussing Punjab earlier, and on Aam Aadmi Party, there are two parts to Aam Aadmi Party. You see, one is, I think what has happened is very logical. Okay, the vacuum, which not only a vacuum was created, but these two parties have become so discredited. Okay. They needed somebody else, and there was no, BJP is not a force to reckon with there. So somebody had to come in, and to that extent, Aam Aadmi Party had some credentials, rub-off effect of Delhi, right or wrong, people perceive them in a particular way. And they had been working at least on the ground for a long time, and they tried to get the people on board. So to that extent, I don't think what could surprise people is the kind of sweep. And that also can be explained today, whether you see in UP result, Uttarakhand or Manipur or Goa. People today don't want to be in fence sitters. They kind of, I think, decide which way to go. And even in UP, I think Rajiv ji was raising this issue about caste. Castes also vote as a block according to issues. So in 2012, they voted cutting across caste lines towards Akhilesh because he was the flavor of the day. Before that, they voted to Mayawati, and then when they moved to BJP. That's one part of the story. Then, when given a choice, see, the problem of unemployment or inflation has been there all over and always. People have seen it's not an issue. But when you talk of unemployment or inflation, people try to understand who is really in a position to solve that. It's gone beyond the TK, isko 5 saal diya, 5 saal inse try karo. If you have a credible story, if they've seen some movement in that direction, they'll trust you. So that is what has happened, say, in Goa. They probably trust the BJP more than that.
Goa was surprising because I don't think anybody expected the BJP to perform that well and, to retain it so emphatically. So,
and even
after that just dictate of voting for the Congress.
Yeah.
So that is how things are. And so I think these are some of the key takeaways. And this, all the parties will have to think beyond superficially. Last, this thing, doctor's favorite party, professor's favorite party, they thought they'll paratroop and get Goa.
Yeah.
You can't get a conqueror state in that way. Okay, no matter how much you spend. Suhel told us that there are more hoardings of his party in Goa than there are coconut palms, today. But you can do that, but it doesn't work that way.
But one thing in Goa is the following: TMC and Aam Aadmi Party in some seats.
So you're a TMC supporter.
Nibbled away at the Congress vote, and as a result of which the BJP was able to get more seats. You see, the 20 mark they were able to reach because at the margin there was some nibbling away. In many parts, what happened was the following: that the TMC and the Congress did very well where the BJP was just not in frame. So at the margin, their entry did help the Congress.
Yeah. Advaita, I'll just
the only thing is why Congress is not being voted is people don't see leadership there. The problem is they don't see any leadership in Congress.
But the
so that is where the problem lies. Even the local leadership is not there. पहले वो regional क्षत्रप्स होते थे, चंद्रशेखर से लेके young Turks, regional क्षत्रप्स, all that. So over a period of time वो सब खत्म हो गया है और एक बहुत बड़ा गैप है दो generations के बीच में. I mean, जो generation अभी पार्टी रन कर रही है, तो अगली generation which is supposed to take over, तो आप देखिए ना, somebody told that वो खाट पार्टी, Aman probably told. तो वो जो कोटरी थी राहुल गांधी which he was giving around, जो पार्टी का जिसको rejuvenate करना था, उसमें से शायद सचिन पायलट के अलावा कोई नहीं बचा है. That मिलिंद देवड़ा is gone, ज्योतिरादित्य सिंधिया is gone.
Milind Devra is there. He's there.
Milind is still there. Milind is still there.
Yeah.
He is still there. He's waiting for a good deal to come his way. He's waiting for a good deal to come.
Have you feel something on the show?
And I think one good thing that they can get is Varun Gandhi. The Congress.
But Rajiv ji, the point is, again, I'm sometimes amazed at the what should I say, the simplicity or anything of our media people. Now they keep on talking about the Sachin Pilot. Aman, don't take umbrage. What has Sachin Pilot got to prove in his to be becoming the Congress president? Those of us who know his way, his personality, okay, in Khan Market he might come across as very dapper and smart, and he holds these annual bashes for the a journalist in Delhi, where he brings all the guys from his village to make village food, which people really like, and all that he does. But as running a party administration, that to a national party, reviving it, they just go by the looks people like us sort of a thing. That's why they'll say, who? Shashi Tharoor and Sachin Pilot. Just because they won some elections, do not make them qualified to become.
Yeah, Sandip, Advaita, I have last point. I have to go for a 8:45 CWC briefing. I have to listen to it. Just a few points of what Sandip ji said about Sachin Pilot. I think the best person that Congress has to lead the party is Ashok Gehlot. Ashok Gehlot proved it as General Secretary organization when he brought Congress to a near victory in Gujarat in the last elections. Ashok Gehlot, in my opinion, is the best suited, the most experienced person to bring out Congress from this mess in some measure, maybe. Second point, I would, which we were mentioning earlier about the challenge to Yogi and Modi combination. Can anybody challenge them? See, I think I was speaking to a senior minister before the UP election and I asked him about Akhilesh, the senior BJP minister. The BJP minister told me, ये Akhilesh Yadav का टेस्ट है कि वो अपने आप में नेता बन जाते हैं या वो अजीत सिंह की राह चले जाएंगे जहां अपने पिताजी की पार्टी बनाई हुई पूरी बर्बाद कर देंगे. So clearly, Akhilesh Yadav has tried everything now. He's tried an alliance with Congress. He's tried an alliance with BSP. Now he tried an alliance with smaller parties, RLD and SPSP. All three have not worked. I strongly feel that the turning point in UP was in 2019 when Mayawati broke the alliance with Akhilesh Yadav. I strongly feel that an alliance of BSP and SP in 2022 would have worked far, far better than what has happened now. जब अखिलेश यादव और मायावती ने 2019 में गठबंधन किया और स्टेज से बोला कि हम देश को एक नया प्रधानमंत्री देंगे, उनकी कोई बात पे विश्वास नहीं कर सकता था बिकॉज मिस्टर मोदी को कौन चैलेंज कर सकता था. इवन बिसाइड्स दैट अद्वैता, बीजेपी, बीएसपी एंड एसपी टुगेदर won 15 out of 80 seats in Lok Sabha. That was the best performance by any opposition party in North India in 2019 Lok Sabha election. So it was an alliance. It was a good alliance in 2019. It would have been an even better alliance for 2022. But for her best reasons, best known to Mayawati, she broke off that alliance unilaterally with Akhilesh Yadav. That, I think, was a major, major thing which paved the way also for the BJP to win this election. Second, I think, going ahead, I don't know if ever SP and BSP again come back together, what happens. But this election has also shown that जो SP के allies थे, दोनों RLD और SBSP, दोनों का below par performance है यूपी में. बल्कि जो बीजेपी के अलाइंस हैं दोनों अपना दल और निषाद पार्टी, जिसको किसी ने मीडिया में कवर नहीं किया पूरे इलेक्शन में. मैं गया था निषाद पार्टी का ना, आई वेंट टू चौरी चौड़ा टू इंटरव्यू निषाद पार्टी. संजय निषाद सन वाज कंटेस्टिंग फ्रॉम देयर. ही टोल्ड मी आप पहले जर्नलिस्ट है जो मेरा इंटरव्यू करने आए हैं. तो निषाद पार्टी विच आउट परफॉर्म्ड इटसेल्फ इन दिस इलेक्शन, जिसने गोरखपुर बेल्ट में काफी अच्छा कंट्रीब्यूशन दिया और खुद भी सीटें जीती हैं. उसी तरह अनुप्रिया पटेल की पार्टी ने भी बहुत अच्छी परफॉर्मेंस की बीजेपी के लिए, लोअर पूर्वांचल में काफी सीटें जीती हैं और अनुप्रिया पटेल की बहन भी जीत गई केशव मौर्य के खिलाफ. तो क्लियरली दीज टू अलाइज जो थे, जो बीजेपी के अलाइज थे, दे परफॉर्म मच बेटर. तो अखिलेश यादव हैज टू नाउ रियली कंसिडर हिज अलायंसेस बिकॉज नन ऑफ हिज अलायंसेस इन द लास्ट 5 years हैव वर्कड. एंड लास्ट पॉइंट आई वुड लाइक टू मेक ऑफ पंजाब. जो पंजाब की यहाँ बात हो रही थी कि पंजाब में क्यों आप जीती है, देखिए पंजाब में मेरा ये मानना, जितना मैं ट्रैवल किया 10 दिन पंजाब में, लोगों की लड़ाई किसी पार्टी से नहीं थी. लोगों की लड़ाई पंजाब के सिस्टम से थी. पीपल वर सैड, पीपल वर डिसइल्यूजन्ड, पीपल थॉट द होल सिस्टम हैज गॉन रॉटन, इट इज करप्ट. People were disillusioned with both the Akali Dal and the Congress. Congress came to power in 2017 on 2 points in Punjab. First point, to give justice in sacrilege and police firing cases of Faridkot. Second, to eliminate drug abuse from Punjab. Neither captain could do it, nor Channi could do it. So these two were emotive issues in Punjab, जिसको आपने बहुत अच्छी तरह टैप किया. और आप ही एक पार्टी थी पंजाब में जिसके खिलाफ लोगों में कोई भी गुस्सा नहीं था. People had grouses with Akalis, people had grouses with BJP, with Congress, of course. They had no grouse with AAP. AAP was a default beneficiary of all these things. So it became a default beneficiary. I am not surprised with 92 seats. Because I would tell you a hilarious story that in AAP, I went to Congress office in Patiala. I was waiting for the Congress candidate. और Congress office, पार्टी ऑफिस के बाहर आपको जनरली पार्टी का ही क्राउड मिलता है. तो वहां पे कांग्रेस कुछ लोग मुझसे बात कर रहा था. 5 मिनट बाद उन लोगों ने खुद कहना शुरू कर दिया कि हमें लग रहा है हम ही आपको वोट डालेंगे. मतलब आई विल लाइक व्हाट इज हैपनिंग हियर. ये कांग्रेस ऑफिस के बाहर ही लोग बोल रहे हैं कि आपको वोट डालेंगे. सेम वाज विद चन्नीस कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी इन चमकौर साहब. जिस दिन चन्नी साहब का अनाउंसमेंट हो रहा था, आई वेंट टू चमकौर साहब टू स्पेंड अ डे. चन्नी साहब के ऑफिस के बाहर मार्केट है एक, वहां पे 5-6 दुकानदारों से बात की, सब बोल रहे हैं आपको वोट डालेंगे। तो मतलब आप किसी से भी पूछ लेते पंजाब में, मतलब आई डोंट नो एनी जर्नलिस्ट हु वेंट टू पंजाब वाज श्योर दैट आप इज स्वीपिंग इट। 92 का उनका 100 भी आ सकता था। कांग्रेस ने 5-6 सीटें, जिनके पुराने नेता हैं प्रताप सिंह बाजवा और गुरजीत राणा, इन्होंने अपनी अपनी सीटें जीत ली, तो कांग्रेस का नंबर आया। कांग्रेस सिंगल डिजिट में रहती पंजाब में, अगर जिस तरह से कांग्रेस ने बर्बाद होकर इलेक्शन लड़ा है पूरा पंजाब का। पंजाब में तो केस स्टडी होनी चाहिए, हाउ टू लूज एन इलेक्शन, द कांग्रेस केस स्टडी। चन्नी साहब पीएचडी कर रहे हैं, चन्नी साहब इज डूइंग अ पीएचडी ऑन कांग्रेस पार्टी, ही शुड चेंज हिज पीएचडी टॉपिक एंड डू, तो खुद ही इसके भक्त भोगी हैं।
I think Aman, you must also blame some of your friends in that. They all suddenly thought Channi was the great new wonder. And people started saying that, this is the master stroke because Congress has not been looking within. They produce a Baghel and now Channi.
वो संदीप जी क्यों हुआ, मुझे लगता है कि सब लोगों को लगा कि ये दलित फेस का जो बात कांग्रेस ने बेची, कि दलित फेस बड़ा फैक्टर होगा। देखिए पंजाब में कोई कास्ट पॉलिटिक्स है ही नहीं, इतने सालों से नहीं हुई है। पंजाब में कास्ट पॉलिटिक्स होती तो मायावती सीटें ना जीत जाती, पंजाब इतने सालों से नहीं जीत पाई है। पंजाब में आनंदपुर साहिब जो सिख पंथ की सीट है, वहां से एमपी कौन है, हिंदू है, मनीष तिवारी। फरीदकोट सीट है, जो अनदर पंथिक सीट है, उससे एमपी कौन है, मोहम्मद सादिक, एक मुस्लिम कांग्रेस के। देयर इज नो कास्ट पॉलिटिक्स, देयर इज नो कम्युनल पॉलिटिक्स, आई एम सॉरी, आल्सो इन पंजाब। पंजाब में सिर्फ ये है कि पंजाब को हमेशा कुछ नया चाहिए। जब नया आईफोन आता है मॉडल का, सबसे पहले पंजाब में सेल आउट होता है। पीपल लव चेंज, पीपल लव दिस रेवोल्यूशन का आइडिया की तो गाना जो था, मैं तो पक्के मेरे कान सुन सुन के एक मौका केजरीवाल लू, पंजाब में बिकेम एन एंथम देयर, पीपल रिलेटेड विद इट। तो भगवंत मान को ऊपर से उन्होंने सीएम फेस बना दिया। भगवंत मान को आप जो मर्जी कह लीजिए, जो मर्जी उसको कांग्रेस कहती है कि अल्कोहलिक है, पंजाब में शराब पीना इज नॉट लुक डाउन अपॉन, इट इज सीन एज अ ट्रेट। पंजाब में आई यूज्ड टू आस्क पीपल वहां पे कि भगवंत मान शराबी हैं क्या, बोलते हैं अरे यार तो सब शराबी है, सब पीते हैं, इसमें क्या है, हाँ जाट सिख है, जाट सिख तो सब पीते हैं। तो इट इज नॉट समथिंग व्हिच वर्कड ऑन द ग्राउंड। आई थिंक आपने तो मतलब ये इलेक्शन आपको ही जीतना था, ये बड़ा क्लियर था 4-5 महीने से, ये आपको ही जीतने वाला है। आप अगर हारती तो अपनी वजह से हारती, नहीं तो आपके टोटल फेवर में था। या I'll take a leave. I have to start.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you'll come back and enjoy the rest of your evening. Whatever's left.
Tuli ji is also gone, I think.
Everyone is gone. I think we should also go now.
Yeah, my only last point on AAP is Advaita, which earlier Abhijit said and everybody said. What I feel is AAP on this term will not get into any of the fundamental issues. They will try to do the optics with schools, hospitals, etc., and gain some, brownie points. Because for them also, Punjab will be a cash cow. They'll have to get money to go and fight 2024.
Sandip, Punjab is in a fiscal mess. There is no cash to be had in Punjab.
No, not in that way. That would not cash in in terms of. So I'm saying they will not try to, crack on some of the underlying issues. And BJP has to make its ground in the next 4 or 5 years. Yes. That's when you will have maybe it's a long game for BJP. And led by
what are the odds of Kejriwal? Two options. One is, of course, taking over CM-ship of AAP, full state there. He's always wanted that. He's always been grumbling that Delhi is not a full state and there are all these restrictions and checks that one gets into. The second option is now the national planning. About 2 years away from the next general elections, is there a chance that Kejriwal could maybe appoint Sisodia as Delhi CM and then take on his national convener role and travel across the country and build some sort of consensus with regional leaders as well as people?
Look, where I see it, I mean, AAP has made waves only in 3-4 places. One is in Delhi, of course, all over, Punjab, Goa, a bit in Uttarakhand.
Yeah.
Where else is AAP? AAP is nowhere else. So, to take on a national role, that is, you have to make some headway into the major states, is another matter altogether. Look, things had to be very rotten in Delhi, and we know post-Commonwealth Games, how disillusioned India was, how disillusioned Delhi was with the corruption. We also know how disillusioned Punjab is now. So unless you have total sense of disillusion in some of the smaller states, and AAP cannot make headway there. So AAP will be, I think, until it's able to make headway into the larger states, AAP is nowhere. And I do not see it happening at all. So, I think Kejriwal indulged himself when he took on Modi in 2014. It didn't pay off nationally. He made the wise decision to come back to Delhi and manage Delhi. I do not see Kejriwal venturing out yet. It may happen, but not yet.
Okay. Okay.
We
On
will
that
end
note,
on that note.
let's end. And thank you again, both of you, for joining me. This was the really long Sunday Club, but I think these elections were so long drawn out, and we were anticipating these results for such a long time that it was nice to actually be able to talk about them at length without interruption. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you all again on the Sunday Club soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See, Bengalis never let you down. So you should call us.
I know. I'm noticing it's a karmic connection, actually.
Yeah.
See you. Bye.
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 Advaita, you should have